Welcome to Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, back again with another episode, y'all. On today's show, I got a special guest. He's going to be talking about some things that I think that are really relevant in the world today, and I hope that by listening to this episode and the ones that are going to be following, I hope that you get something out of this that is going to be profitable and fruitful to you. But I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we're going to jump right into it. Go ahead, brother.
Good evening. My name is Phillip Gardner.
Let me say this too, right, for him, right. This is our first interview, and this is a good brother right here. We were talking about an issue the other day. We were just sitting around casually talking about an issue that I think is painful for a lot of people. But I don't think a lot of people are aware of what goes on when you are in foster care. And this brother was telling me some things that I had only heard about on TV. I had never in my life met anybody that had experienced what he was telling me. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, his experiences in foster care and how it shaped him and influenced the many years to follow in his life. And I hope that, like I said before, I hope that you get something out of this, and I hope that you learn something from it, right? So, Phil, the other day when we were talking, right, you were telling me about when you went into foster care. Tell the listeners how you ended up in foster care.
Well, Joe, I ended up in foster care at the age of 15, which would have put me in 1993. Mm-hmm. My mom, she was on drugs, mm-hmm. and she abandoned us at a church, mm-hmm. because she felt that she could no longer care for us. And it was myself. I mm-hmm. had three younger brothers and two younger sisters from the ages of 2 years old all the way up to 13. Mm-hmm. So we all went to church one Sunday morning after mm-hmm. one of her drug binges, and mm-hmm. she left us at church. You know, I played basketball, so I had my younger sister to watch my mom to make sure she doesn't leave us. And I had a feeling that she was going to leave, but I love basketball, so there was a gym underneath the church. So mm-hmm. my brother and I, we were playing, and when service was over, you know, we came back upstairs, and I saw my sister and my brother, and I'm like, "Where's Mom?" And they're like, "She went to the bathroom." Mm-hmm. But as time went on and people started to disperse and everybody left, she was no longer there. So mm-hmm. the pastor of that church, he wanted to take us home with him. Mm-hmm. But his niece was a social worker in Minnesota, for the state of Minnesota.
Right.
And she said, "No, you can't take them home. You got to call the police, and the police has to take care of it." So that's what happened. They called the police. The police came and picked us up and takes us to this shelter, which is a home for children, you know, from ages newborn all the way up to 18 years old. Right. And we ended up in that place for about 2 months. And in that place, there was multiple kids from all different ages, you know, and we were separated. I was separated from my younger brothers and sisters, but my brother that's right underneath me, the 13-year-old, he and I were in the same, I guess you could say, pod or mm-hmm. whatever. And we saw them in passing, but we didn't get to see them. And the way we ended up in foster care is because there was a family that would come in and kind of like go through and see what kids were, you know, behavioral kids, what kids were good in school. And they had, you know, other counselors there. So mm-hmm. my brother and I, you know, being raised in Memphis, Tennessee, mm-hmm. and I guess with the Southern hospitality, we were well-mannered. Even though we were going through what we were well-mannered. So the counselors kind of took a liking to us, so they pointed the family in the direction of us because, you know, we were 13 and 15 and, you know, we were well-mannered, never got in trouble. Mm-hmm. Well, we met with that family once, and maybe a month and a half later, they came and picked us up, and we moved into that house with the family. It was a, you know, African-American husband, African-American wife, and they had two of their own sons. One was 14 and the other was 11. So they were roughly the same age as us, but they had their mom and dad there. So you can, we meshed well with them because they had a lot of, I guess, amenities, toys, clothes, all these things that we didn't have. So it was easy for us to build that relationship.
So let me ask you real quick. So what happened to your other siblings? They had to stay there?
They eventually end up moving to, all four of them stayed together. They moved to another foster home altogether, but they didn't move into the best neighborhood in Minneapolis.
Okay, yes. Okay, that's a good point because a few seconds ago you said it because you and your brother were raised in Memphis, Tennessee, or had lived in Memphis, Tennessee, that Southern hospitality was part of your mannerism and so on. But this actually happened in
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So they moved to a different foster home in not the best area in Minneapolis. My brother and I, we moved to a suburb home in the suburbs of Minneapolis, which was a very affluent home area. I mean, it was really nice.
Right.
So there was a complete difference in the environments, which the neighborhood was more similar to Memphis that my younger brothers and sisters lived in. It was drug infested. It was, right around the corner from what they would call the track, where where all the drugs, the gangs, so their upbringing was a lot different, and the foster parent was single. It was a single mom, and she had two other foster kids that she had already had there. So there was a total of 6 foster kids that she had, and then in the home that we were, it was just my brother and I. So that's how we ended up in foster care. So from that point on, it was, I guess, things began to change. It not just in our foster home, but also in their foster home.
So y'all stayed in touch as best you could?
Rarely did we see each other. It was supposed to be visits every week, but it was up to the foster parents. So if their foster mom didn't feel like taking them to the social worker office on the weekend, then we didn't see the visit. Or if our foster parents didn't feel like driving 30 minutes to the city, then we didn't see our mom. Or if my mom was out on one of her binges and just didn't show up, we didn't see. So it was a hit and miss. There was nothing consistent like this is how it's going to be every week. So it began to develop things and kind of grow me in a way that I would have never seen myself growing.
Okay, before you get to that, I want to ask, so you had a caseworker?
Yeah, we had a caseworker, a social worker.
Before you get to the part you're about to, tell me about the caseworker. What was that experience like? What were the responsibilities of the caseworker, and what did they talk to you about?
Well, we saw the caseworker very sporadically. I mean, it was, I'd say, a mid-age white lady. I'm not sure if she was married or not. She would come by and, she would just check on things to really just look at the environment. It was never how you guys are doing or how is this place going or how are they treating you or how, it was never like that. Then if something happened to where we got a different caseworker, he was a male. So she stopped coming by and he began to come back. He was an African-American man. And he would come by and he would, ask us questions and kind of talk in general about sports and how school going. And, it was very, I guess, surface level. We couldn't, whenever we would tell him something's going on or we wanted to tell him something's going on, he would divert the question or kind of avoid the issues of what we were trying to say. So
what were some of the things that you would try to say to him that he would just push to the side?
Well, we would tell him that we in his house and they not buying us clothes. We don't have any clothes. Or they let their kids watch TV, and we got to sit in the hallway to watch TV from the room. And sometimes they would have their kids close their door so we can't watch TV. And, you know, we had a radio, so we had to listen to the radio in the garage. And it's Minnesota, so it's cold, and it's like minus 20 degrees. And we got to listen to the radio in the garage. And then if the radio's too loud, now you can't listen to the radio. So essentially, we would just end up being stuck in our bedroom, not being able to watch TV, not being able to listen to the radio. So the little things that you would normally have as a teenager, because that's what we were, especially male teenagers, were being restricted. I mean, I can't say why it all happened, but it was like that right away at the beginning, you know. So if they would get in trouble if they left the door open for us to watch TV, because we could never go in their room to watch TV. You know,
What room did y'all sleep in?
we had our own bedroom, my brother and I, and in that bedroom it was 2 beds, a closet, you know, nothing on the walls, and no TV. We could not have our radio up in there, no phone, no nothing. It was just a room. So we didn't understand it, because at the shelter, you know, we had our radio, we had TV. So to leave from that place to come to this home and then be with, you know, and let me say, black people, I would have thought that it would got a lot better, but it felt way worse.
So they took the phones from you?
We never had a phone.
You never had one. They never got you.
They never got us a
But
phone.
their kids had.
Yeah, their kid had phones,
didn't,
TV,
right.
radio, and, you know, so it bothered. I can tell it began to bother their kids, because when the parents would leave the home, then the doors came open. We could come in the room and we could watch TV, but we had to watch out for them to make sure, you know, moms, if she come in, you got to get out the room, and to the point where their kids began to rebel against them.
Did they ever tell you? Their kids ever tell you why their parents were treating y'all like that?
Never, not one time. They just would argue with their parents that they treated us messed up.
Right.
And one son, he kind of got really belligerent with his dad and was, you know, swearing like, you treating them like crap. They didn't do anything. Why you treating them like this? And he ended up getting a whooping, and the other son got a whooping for standing up for her. So it was us being there was creating tension amongst the parents and the children, because they got to see how their parents was treating us. Yeah. So it wasn't a pleasant situation to be in, to say the least.
The other day you were telling me something about you were able to, I don't remember how you put it, but you were able to see the check that they were getting per month for you and your brother. Tell me about that.
One day I came home from school, because they never picked us up from school. So being in this suburban school, I was around a lot of white kids, and there was well-to-do white kids. Their parents had mansions.
And how were you as a student?
I was excellent. I mean, I graduated with a 3.8 GPA. Never caused any trouble. Never had any problems. I mean, I was, considering the situation that I was in, you would have never known that I was living in the foster home and my mom was on drugs. So when, you know, it was, I was able to mask that side extremely well, to the point where when I began to share that information, nobody believed me. They couldn't believe.
So how was your brother in school?
My brother, he was a C average student. He struggled in school even when we were in Memphis. Yeah. But he too masked the situation, but in a different aspect. You know, he began to like drift towards the kids that were causing problems, you know, in the schools, you know, where if they were fighting in the school, you guarantee he was somewhere around that fight. Not to say he was started, but just he was drawn more to that part of, you know, the situation, and I was drawn to the opposite part of it. So, you know, one day my friend dropped me off at home, and I just decided, I don't know, some sort of go check the mail. So I checked the mail, right, and I go, and there's a check from the Department of, I can't remember, Social Service, yeah, and it had CO on it, and it was addressed to my brother and I, Phillip Gardner, and, you know, it had my brother. But it also had the foster parents' name on it as well. So, you know, me being the nosy kid, let me see what this is. Because I knew it was a check. I had seen these checks before in the state of Minnesota from my mom receiving, assistance. And that's a whole nother story. But I put it up to the light, and I'll never forget, it had $3,356. So that's what they were receiving every month for my brother and I. And I found out that the reason why they were receiving that is because we were classified as behavioral individuals. So we were considered high risk. Even though they gave them extra money, even though we never got suspended, never had any problems. I mean, we just came from this home for children with nothing but an excellent reputation, even at the home, to where how are we high risk? But we were considered high risk. And they got this lump sum every single month. And one day, I was being nosy, and I snuck into their room, because their room was right across from ours. And I opened up their dresser drawer, and it was at least 10 checks, like they were just holding them to make a huge deposit or at one time. I had all of this money that they had received. I want to say at least 30, 40, almost $40,000 that they had received in just this year, 9-10 months time we had been there. And they had never bought us any clothes. They didn't take us, we never got a TV. We never even got bicycles. They didn't take us on any trips that they went on. I mean, it was, people were like, this is not going on. They would lock the refrigerator with a chain and lock. Really? Just to keep us from going in to the refrigerator to, get food. But they would give their kids the key to go in. So when their kids would go in, of course, we being teenage boys, we going in and we getting everything that we can. But we had to do it without the foster parents being there. Right. So it was all weird, because I wasn't expecting to be treated like this by my own, my own people. I mean, this you black, you from Arkansas, you from Mississippi, you from the South. So, I haven't done. We haven't. My mom is on drugs. You know what I came from. But you are creating a deeper wound in me, and it just I never understood why you like that. Like, what did I do to be like that?
Mm-hmm. What did you do to deserve that? You and your brother.
I even till this day, and I'll be 45 this month. I still think back, what did I do to make them treat me like that? To make them not want us to watch TV with their kids. And, so I began to, like, I don't know, I guess not only had I masked it, I had begun to, like, live in that mask.
What do you mean by that?
I began to, like, become someone the complete opposite. I wanted to be as far away from the Phillip that I knew growing up in Memphis. And I assimilated to be just like those kids in the suburbs. I lost my Southern accent. I began to, like, change my voice and the way I talked. I began to, like, change the way I walk. Everything began to, like, change in the way to where I would look completely different than what I knew who.
Well, do you think that was because you wanted to fit in and be accepted, and maybe you thought that would change the way they would treat you?
The children in the school treated me well, because it was a school of 1,700 kids. Okay. And there was only 5 blacks in this school. And it was a culture shock like you can never believe. Imagine coming from South Memphis. Yes. And going, nothing but blacks around, and all you know is white people is evil. Right. That's all you know. That's all what you taught. And then you getting thrust into this high school where you are one of 5 blacks. And I'll never forget the day me and my brother walk in, and we were sitting outside the office, the administrative office, just sitting there waiting. And our foster parents were in there talking. And I looked at my brother and I said, "Reg, we can't beat up all these white boys. We got to be friends with them." because where I'm from, that's what we did. It didn't matter if you were a white guy in that neighborhood.
You got it.
We was fighting you. We don't even know why you first of all why you in this neighborhood, but that's what we were taught.
Yeah.
So when I got to this school and I'm looking like, wait a minute, we're just too many white boys. We can't beat all these white boys up. We gotta be cool with them. And he's like, man, it's a lot of them. What are we gonna do? I said, we just gotta be cool with it. So for the first week, I didn't say a word. My coach, I remember the coach coming up to me is like, you tall, do you play basketball? And I was like, yeah, I played. So I go and play, just go to practice one day with them. And I turned out being the best player on the sophomore team. Like they were just in awe of me. And what I had got from that is like I began to relax because, now all these kids who I was getting ready to fight were bringing me in and they were like, man, you can jump, man, you can shoot, you can do all that, you could do, and I had never gotten that before because where I'm from, everybody can jump, everybody can shoot, everybody, I didn't stay, I was just a normal kid, but here I became exceptional. So while this stuff is going on at home, I drew more to school than being at home. And so the home aspect, it became more of a thorn or a nuisance to go back home. I didn't care to go back to that foster home, or when I was in that foster home, I didn't care to speak to the foster parents because I knew what I was getting. Now, was every day like that? No, but most of the week was like that. They may buy dinner and include us, but there was a limited amount that we could eat because we were teenage boys and they didn't want us to eat up all the food. And so, but again, I couldn't watch TV. So I didn't care to try to pretend to be a family of happy. And I think people fail to realize that being in a foster home, it's cool for you away from whatever situation, but I will never be happy because I'm away from my mom. I'm away from my brothers and my sisters. I'm in a foreign land. I don't know any of you people. So don't you dare think that I'm going to be okay and happy with this situation. There's no way in hell you can think that I should be able to smile when I don't even know where my mom is and I ain't talked to her in 2-3 months. What am I supposed to do? You think that I don't care what you give me or how many clothes I don't care about that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
especially if you're in a foster home where you're mistreated. You don't even get the chance to be happy, And because I know some people that were in foster homes and ended up getting adopted and loved their parents, but they didn't experience what you experienced. You know what I mean? But I've heard them say what you said. They still missed their biological parents. They wanted that relationship with them, regardless of what was going on or why they were separated. They still wanted that. So I feel what you're saying, right? But let me ask you this, though. Tell me, how did the treatment that you experienced in that foster situation, in that foster home, how did that affect you as you got older, the next year in school, and your relationships and with females or with your other friends? How did that affect you, if it did in any way?
Now that I'm older, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I can look back and say it robbed me.
And what do you mean by that?
It robbed me in a way that I was never able to truly attach myself to people. I would always hold some back. Because I didn't know, I wasn't willing to completely open up because it made me numb. That treatment made me it made me numb because it came from adult black people, and where I received all my love from, or where I was supposed to, it was all empty. There was nobody there. So I got older, but I didn't have what I needed to sustain a proper relationship. So I would only give enough to where I was willing to lose, or if it did hurt, it wouldn't hurt this much. So it even till this day, it's only recent that I'm able to process all of this stuff and and get it out. But it distorted the way I perceived all my relationships, and I wasn't 100, as to so to speak, in every relationship. I held things back, or I was always manipulating it to my advantage, to where I couldn't get hurt again, because now I'm out here and there is no safety net. One thing about that foster home is that it even though as bad as it was still a safety net, you know what I'm saying? But now that I'm out, I gotta somehow create my own safety net. So it gave me a different view of just adult in general. It gave me a different view, and I didn't want to grow up to be like them, you know. So I guess I had begun to live in this mask, hiding all the pain, hiding all the anxiety, the worry, the fear, you know. It truly distorted everything that, as a man, as a black man, as a man in America, I'm supposed to have or grow up with. It distorted, and I was able to just like mimic, and my character became very charismatic, to where I can fit into anywhere. It didn't matter whether it was
Where
the
did
hood.
you learn that from? I mean, because what it sounds to me like you're saying that you were emotionally stunted in one way, but then in the other way you learned to assimilate. You know what I'm saying? So where did you learn that from? Watching TV or from watching the kids at school? How did you learn to maneuver like that and become that charismatic person?
I learned it by both kids at school and watching TV. My vision of a black man, or who I wanted to become, was Cliff Huxtable.
Okay.
That's you know how he Cosby Show, how he was with, you know, his wife and his kids. That was the goal. As the black man who I wanted to become, that was the goal. How I would get there was from, you know, watching, you know, my other classmates with their parents. You know, all my classmates, all my friends were all white. They had mom, dad in the home. I saw how they loved their mom. I saw how they loved their dad. I saw how their dad got to treat their mom. I saw how their mom treated their dad, how they treated their sisters, and it was all such a loving environment. So I began to mimic what they would do in their relationships. Now, I didn't know it was all, I guess, empty, because I was all mimicking, but it had created a desire that if I do what they did, I would get what they got. If I think like them, then I would end up being the way that they are. Not understanding that I'm still carrying all of this rejection and this pain, and you know, I'm taking it with me. But if I could just do these things, you know, and be the way they be and act the way they act, then I'll get this, you know.
Okay. Now, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to wrap this episode up, and we're going to come right back, y'all. So you're going to have to tune into the next episode to get the rest of this story. But I want you to talk about, when we get to the next episode, I want you to talk about the day that your social worker started to believe what you had been telling her all along about what was going on in foster home, okay?
Yes, sir, I will.
Right, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Oh, no problem, man. I appreciate you.
Dig that. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.